is reported to hide a steely determination. This is a tough industry where technology changes fast. Product life cycles are short, and no one can expect to last long as the market leader based on only one innovation. Competitors may appear on the horizon out of nowhere any day. After all, his company has just sprung a nasty surprise on the Americans and the Japanese. Might a relatively unknown fuel cell manufacturer somewhere in Nigeria decide that if Tres Estrellas was able to move from the darkest shadows to the top of the tree, then perhaps it could too? Mozambique may or may not succeed in living up to my fantasy. But what would your reaction have been had you been told in 1961, a century before the Mozambican dream, that South Korea would, in 40 years' time, be one of the world's leading exporters of mobile phones, a strictly science fiction product at that time? Hydrogen fuel cells do at least exist today. In 1961, 8 years after the end of its fratricidal war with North Korea, South Korea's yearly income stood at $82 per person. The average Korean earned less than half the average Ghanaian citizen, $179. The Korean War, which, incidentally, started on June 25th, Mozambique's Independence Day, was one of the bloodiest in human history, claiming 4 million lives in just over 3 years, 1950 to 1953. Half of South Korea's manufacturing base and more than 75% of its railways were destroyed in the conflict. The country had shown some organizational ability by managing to raise its literacy ratio to 71% by 1961 from the paltry 22% level it had inherited in 1945 from its Japanese colonial masters, who had ruled Korea since 1910. But it was widely considered a basket case of developmental failure. A 1950s internal report from USAID, the main U.S. government aid agency then, as now, called Korea a bottomless pit. At the time, the country's main exports were tungsten, fish, and other primary commodities. As for Samsung, now one of the world's leading exporters of mobile phones, semiconductors, and computers, the company started out as an exporter of fish, vegetables, and fruit in 1938, 7 years before Korea's independence from Japanese colonial rule. Author's note: Samsung in Korean means 3 stars, as does my fictitious Mozambican firm, Tres Estrellas. The last sentence in my imaginary 2061 Economist piece is based on a real Economist article about Samsung, As Good as It Gets, January 13th, 2005, whose final sentence reads, might a relatively unknown electronics manufacturer somewhere in China decide that, if Samsung was able to move from the darkest shadows to the top of the tree, then perhaps it could too? The 17 years during which the fuel cell division of my fictitious Mozambican firm lost money is the same investment period during which the electronics division of Nokia, founded in 1960, lost money. Until the 1970s, its main lines of business were sugar refining and textiles that it had set up in the mid-1950s. When it moved into the semiconductor industry by acquiring a 50% stake in Korea Semiconductor in 1974, no one took it seriously. After all, Samsung did not even manufacture color TV sets until 1977, when it declared its intention, in 1983, to take on the big boys of the semiconductor industry from the U.S. and Japan by designing its own chips. Few were convinced. Korea, one of the poorest places in the world, was the sorry country I was born into on October 7, 1963. Today, I am a citizen of one of the wealthier, if not wealthiest, countries in the world. During my lifetime, per capita income in Korea has grown something like 14 times in purchasing power terms. It took the UK over 2 centuries, between the late 18th century and today, and the US around 1.5 centuries, the 1860s to the present day, to achieve the same result. The material